Hello, everybody. Welcome into the first live episode I am doing of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Jeremy Lapidus, your host. Today we have a great show for you. Today we have a great show for you. We're going to be talking about a lot of big things. First of all, catchers and pitchers have reported to training camp for MLB spring training. We'll talk about some major free agents that still have not signed to a team yet. Talk about where we think they might end up, and how we think their contracts will go. Next, we'll get into a little bit more Super Bowl coverage. Kyle Shanahan had a press conference the other day. We'll do some reactions to that. And there were some big defensive coordinator moves on both teams. Both Steve Wilks and Steve Spagnuolo had some news come their way. We'll go over that. And last but not least, since it is Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day, everybody, we will be doing a special Valentine's Day segment for you. But very excited. Remember that if you would like to hop in and get your question to the top of the stream, all you need to do is go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip. Again, that's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip. Also, feel free to chat. I will be reading that chat. Love to hear your thoughts on some of the happenings in the sports world today. Without further ado, let's hop right into our first segment. That being MLB free agents. Now I mentioned today, Valentine's Day is the first day for most teams. Pitchers and catchers have reported, which means we are officially out of the MLB offseason. What an offseason it was. Now there's still a couple major pieces that need to fall into place. We have guys like Matt Chapman. We have guys like Blake Snell, Cy Young winner, that still have not been signed. And there's a bunch of teams out there that could really use some of these major free agents. So we will dive deep, take a look at some of those teams that I think could really benefit from getting some of those guys. And let's start just off with Matt Chapman here. Matt Chapman had a down year by his standards, but he's still a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. He had a hot start and kind of fell off a cliff, I guess, is not the best way to put it, but he did kind of fall off a cliff there after the beginning of the season, but he still had a productive season, putting up 4 wins above replacement. And adding a guy like him on a contending team could do a lot for you. You look at a team like the Marlins, a team that had a lot of holes on offense. Right now they have Jake Berger there at third base, and nothing against Jake Berger. He's a very solid player, but if you can make this upgrade, especially with where the Marlins are, they've lost a couple bats, and bats were their weakness. They lost Jorge Soler, who just signed with the Giants yesterday, I believe. You need more offense, and Matt Chapman, along with the offense, can play that aforementioned Gold Glove caliber defense, which is huge. Defense is a really undervalued thing in the MLB nowadays. You take a look at the Cardinals for all their seemingly out of nowhere runs. It's because their defense has been so solid. They took a step back last season after losing Yadier Molina, but that defense is what propelled them to be so successful for so long. And defense is such a major part of baseball. It just isn't talked about. And Matt Chapman is one of the best in the entire league at third base at that. So we look at a team like the Marlins that could use an upgrade, that could use the offense, and you wonder, are they willing to make a push? They made the postseason the last year, but they fell short in that wild card round. Going from a team, and their strength has been pitching. They have one of the most complete pitching rotations in the entire MLB, obviously assuming health. But adding Matt Chapman to that, I think that'd be a really good fit. And that's my favorite place for him to go. Some other teams that I had marked down, the Mets, I know they really like Beatty, but the Mets are a team that want to compete. Steve Cohen has shown uh, no reservations in spending money, spending lots of it in that uh, to get what he wants, to win championships. You've seen what he's done over the last couple off seasons, paying Max Scherzer more than an entire roster, him by himself. You go get Verlander, both of whom are off the team now after a disastrous 2023 campaign for the Mets. But you add Matt Chapman to that team. Again, his strengths, he fits really. He's going to fit well on a contending team that could really use that boost. He's not going to hit at the top of the lineup. He has that top of the lineup ability, but he's a little bit past his prime offensively. He's more likely going to hit in that middle of the order, more likely going to hit and give you that Gold Glove defense that would be huge for them. Another team that really stuck out to me was the Brewers, a team similar to the Marlins in the fact that they're pitching. Now, I know they lost Corbin Burns this offseason to the Orioles, but their pitching has always carried them. And there's been times where if they had offense, they could have made deep, deep playoff runs. They could have threatened to be World Series contenders, but they just didn't have the offense. Adding a guy like Matt Chapman at the hot corner for them, I think him on either the Marlins or the Brewers would be huge. Now, he could always go back to the Blue Jays. They've got Isaiah Kiner-Falefa right now slotted to be their opening day third baseman. Not the greatest spot for a team like the Blue Jays that wants to compete. But if he was going to go back to the Blue Jays, it feels like he would have signed with them already. It feels like one of those moves that would have already happened, re-signing him. Maybe even during the season, giving him an extension. But yeah, Matt Chapman, I'd like to see him in either a Marlins or a Brewers uniform this season. The next big name, Benny Snell. Benny Snell is coming off a Cy Young year. He's now won 2 Cy Youngs, and he is still in his prime. He's still a relatively young pitcher. Obviously, he just came off that Cy Young winning season with the Padres. Still a free agent. Still out there. Excuse me. Going through teams' rotations, Benny Snell isn't gonna want to go to a team like the A's. He's not gonna go sign with a bottom feeder team. But you go to, I've seen a couple out there to the Nationals. Now, I don't think the Nationals are going to make a move. I think the Nationals roster is set, and that they're just going to go into the 2024 season with what they have, maybe call up a couple guys. But Benny Snell might go to a team like the Nats that have some of those promising young guys on a longer term deal. Like 4 to 5 years, really anchor that rotation. But a team the teams that really stuck out to me for him, the Giants, they are huge in getting pitchers. They lost a couple pitchers in the last couple years, and they always wanted. They're another team that always seems to want to be competitive. The Braves never seem to have enough pitchers. They went out and they got Chris Sale this offseason, and they got him for cheap. That was a great deal by the Braves. You don't know what Chris Sale is going to be, but for what you gave up for him, he doesn't really have to be anything. And then the Red Sox, another team, they have a lot of promise. Last season was not the greatest season in the world for them. It wasn't even very good, to be honest. But adding a elite starter to that rotation could really bump up what they could be. This year, years to come. Again, Benny Snell is not going to sign a 1-year, 2-year deal. He's going to be looking for at least 4 years and a good amount of money with that as well. And the last team that made my list for Benny Snell, we're looking at the the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees, they obviously have Garrett Cole at the top of their rotation, but with how many injuries they had, Carlos Rodon, they went out and got. He was hurt all of last season. At the bottom of the rotation, it's really not that strong. Bolstering a rotation after you go out and you get Soto on a rental. You get Juan Soto on a 1 year. It doesn't seem like he's going to resign. Who knows? Maybe he will. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like he's about to resign. Coming up with pitchers after that, you have the offense. As I mentioned, Soto came over. This is a win now year for the Yankees. But the pitching staff outside of Garrett Cole just isn't that strong. Aaron Judge is there. That offense is going to do its thing. It really is, especially with the deeper lineup that they're getting. But who knows? I think those are the teams I was looking at. And then the last free agent the last major free agent that I was looking at is Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger, former MVP, had a huge bounce back season. He had a comeback player of the year nomination. Looking at what he did out of nowhere once joining the Cubs, he almost pushed them into that playoffs. Obviously not all by himself, but he was a major part of that. Now, with Cody Bellinger, he's also... You don't want to buy into that fool's gold. He had one really, really good season. And I think the main reason that he hasn't been signed yet is because people don't know, teams don't know, if he is that player that he was with the Dodgers when he won the MVP. They don't know if he's the years after that MVP where he was just a negative player. And they don't know if he's going to be that player that he was last season with the bounce back with the Cubs. But a team like defending World Series champions, the Rangers, might be willing to go take a swing on him, if only to play DH. His bat, what it was last season, is absolutely worth that risk. He could go to another mid-tier team that he did with the Cubs. A team like the Angels or, again, the Marlins on this list. They really need some more offense if they would like to be competitive this season, especially in the NL East with the Braves and the Mets after they've reloaded. But the White Sox to a certain extent as well. The White Sox are one of those teams that seemingly everything has just gone wrong for them over the last years or two. You had this stacked team, this stacked roster with all these all-star players in 2020, and then everything fell off a cliff. Everything kind of fell off a cliff there. And you never know when it's going to turn around, but adding a bat like Cody Bellinger, that might make a huge difference in a division that's really up for grabs. That AL Central, there's no clear front runner. The Guardians probably should be, but they're really not. You don't know what the Twins are going to be. They're so up and down with health. And the Royals made a couple big moves. This division really is up for grabs. So I'm excited to see that race. But those were some of the major free agents. We will cover a lot more of the MLB. Like I said, pitchers and catchers reported today. We are officially on countdown to opening day. Very exciting. It's been a long time since baseball. I'm very excited to have it back. Keep an eye on spring training. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I'm curious if anybody would like to say something in the chat here. What is your... where do you think these guys are going? What do you think is the best landing spot for Matt Chapman, Benny Snell, and Cody Bellinger? Feel free to leave a comment. We will be back in just a little bit where we will be covering Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan will be up next. Lots of news with him. We'll break down all his decisions, his press conference, and all the media that's been surrounding him recently. So come on back. We'll be back soon.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. We have, as I said, we just finished covering up the MLB free agents, major free agents that are still out there, as pitchers and catchers have reported today. So the MLB season, offseason is over, and the season is officially underway. We are going to get into some Super Bowl coaching moves that happened. We talked about, we'll talk about Kyle Shanahan in a little bit. And then at the end, we will take a look. I have a very special Valentine's Day segment planned just for today. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. But remember, if you would like to leave a tip or donation, you can go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip. Again, that's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip. You can leave a note with your tip. It will jump right to the front of the screen. Right to the front of the screen, and I'll answer your question right away. All right, give me 1 second. I'm doing a show real quick. Can we be a little bit quieter? Sorry about that. Thank you. All right, sorry about that. Like I was saying, we're going to cover some Super Bowl coaching news. There has been a couple major moves here with the defensive coordinators of both teams. We'll start off with the 49ers' Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks was fired today, let go, as announced by Kyle Shanahan, after just 1 year in that position. The 49ers have gone through a lot of different defensive coordinators in the last couple years. Now, this isn't due to them being fired. This isn't due to the defense being bad. The last two have been poached from him in head coaching search. Mo Salah was taken by the Jets, and most recently, the Texans hired their defensive coordinator last season, which I apologize, I'm blanking the name on there. But Steve Wilks was fired, let go, and my reading on this situation is he's being scapegoated for this Super Bowl, which I don't necessarily agree with. You're taking a look at a guy who shut down the Chiefs' offense in the first half, gave up 3 points all first half. That defense played amazing all game long, and when it just came down to it, if the 49ers had been able to do really anything in the first half offensively, then they probably would have been able to win this game. Now, that's not a guarantee, but I'm putting this loss much more on the offense than I am on the defense. That defense played incredible all game long. And firing Steve Wilks because of this, And I don't know if this is the actual reason, because the 49ers defense down the stretch was not the greatest. They weren't that elite defense that they had been for the entire first half of the season. They weren't that best defense in the league that they were at the beginning. They were still really good, though. This is a defense that barely blitzes and is still able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And now that's due to their high-end talent, but it's also due to coaching. Steve Wilkes did an incredible job with them, and he'll probably get another job. It's a little late in the cycle to go somewhere else, but Steve Wilkes is officially no longer the 49ers defensive coordinator. On the other side of the field, Steve Spagnuolo, who was getting a lot of praise all in the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, lived up to it. We talked about that 49ers defense playing phenomenal. The Chiefs defense played incredible as well. They were able to stop the 49ers offense from doing anything. As much as Patrick Mahomes won that game, the defense was the only reason that they had a chance for Patrick Mahomes to win that game. And having him put up, and because of what they did, and having that defense do what they did all season long, top 5 total defense in the league, he was able to get an extension. And Steve Spagnuolo has been doing this for a long time. He won a Super Bowl with the Giants being a defensive coordinator. He's been a head coach in the past. He didn't get any interviews in this last cycle, but his name might be in consideration coming up in the next coaching cycle. Now, excuse me. I apologize. I'm getting over a cold right now, but where was I? Looking at what he's done, he's had a really, really nice career, and just seeing what he's done to turn around that Chiefs defense so quickly, win 2 Super Bowls in a row, is super impressive, and I think he will be a hot name in next year's head coaching search. Along those same lines, we talk about Kyle Shanahan press conference. There were talks of him being not being able to win the big game. There were questions asked, and he came out and he said, it's not that we can't win the big game, because to get to the Super Bowl, we have won a lot of big games. Paraphrasing there. And he's not wrong. Getting to the Super Bowl is a feat on its own. But when you're as good as the 49ers are, when you're as good as the 49ers have been for a long time, dating back to before Kyle Shanahan even, especially in the Kyle Shanahan era, but dating back to before them when Harbaugh was there as their coach, they've been really good for a really long time. And what do they have to show for it? How many Super Bowls have they won in the last 15 years? It's none. They've come so close so many times. Kyle Shanahan has as well, again, back when he was with the Falcons. Now that's not entirely on him, but there's these moments where he just has shown inability to win the Super Bowl. It's not to say that he hasn't won big games to get there. The NFC Championship, it's a big game. Any playoff game is a big game. But the bigger the game, the bigger the moment. The Super Bowl is the biggest game, the biggest moment. And you can't just sit there and say, what do you mean we can't win big games, when you haven't shown the ability to win the Super Bowl, when you've struggled to get past a couple teams in Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship a bunch of times, when you've struggled to win that Super Bowl for the longest time with a team as talented as them. And that's a lot on coaching. There were a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes made, a lot of great coaching decisions made. but there were also a lot of mistakes. And to come out and just say, no, you're wrong, we can win the big game, you have to prove it. You have to prove that you can go out and you can win the big game. You have to prove that you can compete with Patrick Mahomes. You know, only 2 quarterbacks have ever been able to beat Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady in the playoffs, excuse me. Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. You know, the Bengals and the Bucs were able to beat them. But outside of that, no one has. So it's no tough task going up against them. But being able to hold a lead is really the big thing. In every single one of these games, you've had a 10-point lead at least. 4 years ago, you had that lead and you choked it away. This year was a lot less of what you would call a choke job than in years past, but giving up multiple possession leads, double-digit leads in every single Super Bowl you've been to really is not a good sign. And before you can get on top of it and say, this is not true, you need to be able to prove it. Now, the 49ers are good enough. They have another year with Brock Purdy on this cheap contract where they can make another run, keep this team together. But how much longer is their window really going to be open? We talk about all the time how short a true Super Bowl contending window is. You have to capitalize on your chances because you're not going to get that many chances. You have to capitalize on your chances because the games are big getting there. It's hard to win in the NFL. That's why what the Chiefs are doing is so insane. It's why it's why no team has ever won 3 in a row, what the Chiefs are trying to do here. But with a roster as stacked as the 49ers are, they'll get another chance. They have the ability to have another chance. They have the skill players, the coach, the staff. Kyle Shanahan is not a bad coach by any stretch. He's one of the best coaches in the whole league right now. But at some point, you have to win the game. And we'll talk a little bit more about Kyle Shanahan coming up in the next segment. But there are some similarities here between him and Andy Reid with the Eagles that I'm picking up on. And we'll break that down a little deeper. But, you know, as good of a coach as he is, if this goes on for another 4 years, you know, NFC Championship game every year, eventually you're going to have, and you still don't win one, eventually it's going to blow up in your face. You're going to have one bad season, and then you're going to be gone. And that's not necessarily fair. But for as good of a coach as Kyle Shanahan is, he needs to be able to prove that he can win the Super Bowl, that he can not only be competitive in it, but that he can win it, hold a lead. Because he keeps getting these leads. That's the biggest thing. If he gets blown out and then makes it competitive, it's not that big a deal. If he gets blown out the first time and then gets closer and closer and closer every other time, it's not nearly as big a deal as if none of this happens, as if he has a lead, in a double-digit lead, in every single Super Bowl he's been in. You know, it's one of those things that at some point you have to start questioning, and it's not now. But firing Steve Wilkes seems kind of like a panic button move, especially after that press conference. It feels like he needed someone to take the blame, and Steve Wilkes was that guy, unfortunately. Now, he'll find a job somewhere else. He will. Steve Wilkes is an amazing coach. You saw what he did with the Panthers last year in the interim. He made them a good team. And we saw how good the Panthers were this season. So he'll get another shot somewhere. But it just feels like a scapegoat move to fire him right now. I don't know what you guys think. If you guys have any comments or questions about this, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think here in the YouTube chat. Yeah. But next segment and the segment after that, we have a very special Valentine's Day segment coming up. I'm very excited for it. And in the next segment, we will be breaking down the first NFL mock drafts. And yeah, we'll be back in just a little bit. Stay tuned.
And latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to the show. Remember that if you would like to leave a tip or donation here for us, your comment and question can jump right to the top of the screen. All that you need to do is go to streamelements.com/GSMC sportsnetwork/tip. Again, streamelements.com/GSMC sportsnetwork/tip. We just finished talking about, in the first segment, the MLB free agents that are still out there, some of the major ones. And we just finished talking about some of the coaching news that came out about the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I want to dig a little deeper into Kyle Shanahan in this segment. We kind of did a surface brush with him in that last segment, covering his press conference a little bit. But the big story here, again, out of that press conference has been his inability to win the Super Bowl. And his opponent in the Super Bowl this year was Andy Reid. Now, you look at Andy Reid on the Kansas City Chiefs, and you say there's no similarities there. There's no track record of failure. Ever since Patrick Mahomes got there, he's been so successful at winning the game. But there was time, not that long ago, just 5-6 short years ago, that Andy Reid had this label of being unable to win that big game, unable to win that Super Bowl. And it's because of his time in Philadelphia. The Eagles, he coached them from 1999 to 2012. He had just 3 losing seasons. His last season, his first season, and then a random 6-10 season in 2005. He was so successful in Philadelphia, and yet in those 13 years that he had with the Eagles, he didn't win. He made 1 Super Bowl. That's it. And that's not to say that he didn't make the playoffs. He made it to the NFC Championship game like 4 times, 3 times in a row. He won a playoff game in 5 straight years. He made the playoffs almost every single season, all but 1, 2, 3, 4, all but 5 times. He had a track record of amazing success with amazing teams. And yet he was unable to win that big one. And that's what ultimately got him fired. Now, the 4-12 season at the end didn't help. But this is what we're talking about with Kyle Shanahan. His leash, he's got a long leash left. He really does. But when you're looking at what he's done with the 49ers, how successful he's been, and then you look at Andy Reid's career arc, and you see how successful he has been his entire career, there's no doubt that these are 2 of the best coaches in the league right now. Andy Reid is in conversation for one of the greatest coaches of all time. These coaches are incredible. These coaches have had so much success. But if you look at their early careers, it's very similar. Lots of wins. Lots of playoff success. Unable to win that big game. Unable to win that big game. And it's a shame. Because if you remember at the beginning of this Patrick Mahomes era, the reason everyone was rooting for him, it's not just because it was Patrick Mahomes, it's because Andy Reid needed to get one. Everyone wanted to see Andy Reid get a Super Bowl. And now he's won 3. 2 in a row. He's really cemented his legacy as one of the greatest coaches of all time, first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he does choose to retire. In conversation for the greatest offensive minds of our era. What he does is very similar to Kyle Shanahan. Again, you look at them, they're both offensive geniuses that change the game. Continue to change the game. Have these huge coaching trees. Both of them. Have been uber successful for as long as they've been head coaches. And they both got stuck with this label at certain points in their career or currently of being unable to win that big game, of being unable to get it over the edge. And their leash is long because of how good they are and how successful they are. Andy Reid had 13 years. Kyle Shanahan is nearing on half of that, I believe. And he's been arguably more successful than Andy Reid was in Philadelphia. But seeing the similarities there and having them face off in not just this last year's Super Bowl, but now 2 Super Bowls in a row has been something that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about. There's been a lot of people talking about, is Kyle Shanahan to blame? Is Kyle Shanahan able to win that big game? But there hasn't been a lot of comparisons to early Andy Reid. And I don't know if that's because I'm out of line here. But what I'm seeing here is a very similar thing. So this isn't to say that Kyle Shanahan can't win the big game. Because Andy Reid clearly has been able to shed that label and do it. Kyle Shanahan has shown the ability to be able to do it. He just hasn't been able to hold on. And I don't know what difference he's going to have to make to change that label about him. But until he wins that game, until he goes on his Andy Reid streak of winning a Super Bowl, winning 2 Super Bowls, winning 3 Super Bowls, this label is going to follow him. And I hope for his sake, he's got a long career ahead of him. I hope for his sake that he is able to get a Super Bowl, whether that be in San Francisco or somewhere else. But if he doesn't win the Super Bowl in the next 2 seasons with how stacked that roster is, unable to win the big game will follow him for the rest of his career until he does it. And it will be like Andy Reid, where everyone's going to be rooting for him to get it when they go against the big bad. Or they don't know who to root for in the Super Bowl. But it's one of those things that the way we talk about coaches and players and really legacies in the NFL is a lot of what have you done for me lately? You know, you can try and go back, and it's not just football, it's everywhere. We're a very knee-jerk reaction society when we talk about sports. We like to go and see the last couple seasons that they've done and forget about the past. Because if there's a new trend, that's the trend. And it's unfortunate to a certain extent, because you have guys that it really hurts, and then you have guys that it really helps. You know, Andy Reid, it's really been helping. Kyle Shanahan, now it's been hurting with all these big losses. You know, he goes from genius, offensive-minded, one of the greatest head coaches in the league currently, to choker playoff failure. Just like that. And it's a shame, but he could change this label. Brock Purdy has one more year, maybe two, before they have to get paid. That is their Super Bowl window right now. That is their wide open window. The NFC is only going to get better. You saw the emergence of Jordan Love this season. Caleb Williams is coming to the NFC. Whether that be Washington or the Bears. Drake May or Jaden Daniels or whoever goes second is coming to the NFC. It's going to be a much tougher NFC in the future. This was the chance for Kyle Shanahan to win it, and that's not to say that they can't, because most of that 49ers are still under contract, which is why they've opened up as early Super Bowl favorites at Vegas odds this season. But when you look at the AFC, see the gauntlet that the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes have to run every single season. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, all these guys, Trevor Lawrence. They're all in the AFC. You know, all the great quarterbacks are in the AFC right now. And having an easier NFC is, I don't know if it's worse for the 49ers, because they're a good enough team that they should be able to beat the Chiefs. We saw it. They played them to overtime. But they can't get over the edge. And I think a lot of that is on Kyle Shanahan and some of the weird decisions that he's made. He was trying to think ahead, and he ended up not making the greatest decision in overtime. If it worked out, it would have been genius, you know? It would have been the strategy that everyone used. Since these are new rules, everyone's still trying to figure out what the best way to do it is. But now he's the poster child for getting it wrong. Someone always has to be, you know? But it really sucks when it's you. So I believe that Kyle Shanahan will eventually win a Super Bowl. I do. He's one of those coaches that just will eventually. He's one of those coaches that is talented enough and creative enough to do it. He is very Andy Reid-esque. It's a very similar career arc, at least as of now. And I believe that he will eventually win one, whether that be this year, whether that be next year, or 5 years down the line. But for now, he is being labeled as a guy that can't win, and it's completely fair. It is. It is completely fair. And the only thing he can do is win to shed that label. But coming up in our next segment, since it is Valentine's Day, we will have a very special Valentine's Day segment. So, leave your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan or anything else in the comments. We'll take a look at that. But yeah, we will be right back with our special Valentine's Day segment. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for our fourth and final segment. If you are just tuning in, we have covered a lot today. We have covered MLB free agency, some of the major players that are still left, as pitchers and catchers report for the majority of teams either today or tomorrow. We did a deep dive into Kyle Shanahan, and we talked about some of the coaching news coming out of the 49ers and the Chiefs. But since it is Valentine's Day today, we have a very special Valentine's Day segment. Now, if you are feeling like you want to give, out of the love in your heart, you can leave a tip or donation at streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip. Leave a note with it. It'll come up on the screen right on the bottom. Scroll along. I will respond to you immediately. You can skip the line in the chat. Again, streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork/tip if you would like to have your message heard. Now, this special Valentine's Day segment, it's all about love, Valentine's Day. It's all about spending it with the people we love, and we love sports here. Sports are some of the most important things, as I've been part of some of the most important memories for a lot of people. A lot of me especially, a lot of people that I know bonding over sports, making lifelong friends, enemies. All of it comes from love. We love sports. And as much as we talk negatively about things, because we do, we constantly talk negative about sports. We do it all the time. But there's so much to love. There's so much to love about sports. So go ahead and leave a comment. Talk about the things that we love about sports on this very special Valentine's Day. But some of the things that make sports special, you go back to why we love sports. It could be the people. It could be the people that got you into it. It could be the people that you watch it with. It could be the camaraderie that you feel in a packed house when the crowd is roaring. That's one of my favorite things about sports. You go to a live sports game and the stadium is shaking. And you're there and you take it all in. You take a deep breath and you feel the vibrations of the stadium all around you. The roar of the crowd in huge moments is one of the most beautiful things to be a part of. And I've been lucky enough to experience a lot of that. As a student here at James Madison University, we had college game day come to town. I was up in the broadcast booth giving live stats to the play-by-play. And in between overtime and on that final drive to send it to overtime, the box was shaking, literally shaking. The crowd was so raucous. It was one of the most intense sporting moments I've ever experienced live. You know, pure excitement. There's so much happening in the world nowadays when you can just turn it all off and feel thousands of people, all there for the same reasons, all in having such a great time. And they all come together in unison to form that roar. That's one of the most special things you can experience. You know, it doesn't have to be a scream. It can be a chant. You know, there was that moment in the Michigan-Ohio State game earlier this season where a player got hurt. And the entire crowd started chanting. Unprompted. It's beautiful. It really is. Being in a crowd at a sports game is one of the most magical things when it's unified and loud. On top of that, being a sports fan, it just gives you something, gives you a community to be a part of. It's something that we all love as sports fans, having that community, having that instant bond with people, you know, knowing that you can always have these conversations, you can always fall back on something and make strong bonds with people over this. So on this Valentine's Day, on what is a heavy heart Valentine's Day, with the shooting at the parade in Kansas City, let's think about, first of all, the ones that we lost there. 1 dead, 10 injured, 3 in critical condition, including children. It's a tragedy. But having sports bring us all together, regardless of the awful, awful events of the Super Bowl parade, there were still thousands of people there to celebrate on Valentine's Day. On what should have been a beautiful celebration turned into something much worse. Now, there's more to sports than the crowd, obviously. There's these incredible connections. It's like going to battle with your teammates. When you feel that connection, when you go out there on that field, it's something special. It's a close-knit group that you give your all for. And there's not a lot of things out there that you can, that you can universally say do that. Sports is one of them. It's not all peaches and rainbows and dandelions, but there's always heart there. And isn't that, at the end of the day, why we all come together, gather around the TV, Super Bowl Sunday, gather around with our friends, go to a sports bar, and experience these moments together. Sports is one of the few things that brings everyone together, regardless of if they're sports fans or not. And that's one of those things that is so special about it. It's one of those things that is hard to replicate elsewhere. brings a whole world together in things like the Olympics. Sports do that. That's just what they do. And it's a beautiful thing. So on this Valentine's Day, I hope you enjoy, spend time with your loved ones, and tune back in tomorrow, or Friday, I guess, for Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can find our socials at GSMC Sports Network everywhere except for Twitter when it's GSMC Sports. These clips will be up on YouTube. Go ahead and check them out. If you would like to, in future streams or even now, give a tip, go to streamelements.com/GSMC-sports-network/tip. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I appreciate everybody for showing up, listening. I will see you in the next show. Bye-bye.